So what I want to do with this session is I want to do two things. I want to introduce you to open source. So first 20 minutes is all going to be about open source. I'm going to play a little prezi that lasts about 4 minutes. Stu would have hopefully walked through the door, and he would have answered in his best genes any technical questions that you may have. You've got poor substitutes in me and Steve. I will try and answer any technical questions you've got about open source, thinking about your own systems that you've got back in your departments. What I want to do then is talk a little bit about self-build, because you're all probably locked into supplier contracts. So I want to talk a little bit about the context and complexity of self-build. And then I want to talk about sort of where IT meets practice and what's involved. You know, Stu has not got a magic wand. Stu can build solutions for you. Don't want Stu building solutions on old systems, on old practice. There's a lot of work to do before getting yourself ready for an IT system. And what I want to try and do to you is just introduce that sort of readiness stage, what we've been going through within social care and health. So first of all, the prezi. Read the prezi. And then we'll pause then, and I'll take any technical questions, which there may not be any. Quick TED talk, and then into the transformation piece.
I've got the music.
Turn the music down. I tried to find some Kings of Leon or something like that, but if you've got any razor blades, I think 20. gives you some idea of open source. Any questions?
Gary, can I just ask, I know that Swift is an absolutely massive, massive system, and there's some people who probably use things like Aggresso and Resource and things like that. And I always, I know that Prezi went through really fast then, so we couldn't all see what was actually on there. But I always liken this to having a washing machine. You spent a fortune on it, and it's got 100 programs on it, you only ever use 2. And this is about designing your own system to suit your own needs that you can build differently, and you're not locked in to having to replace the licenses and the maintenance that goes with that system.
Absolutely.
Is that it in a nutshell? I know that you know it's got to be more responsive, it's got to be more community-led, but I just wanted to go through some of those features of it.
Yeah, Swift system, behind the scenes, has got 1,200 tables in the background. It's got a payroll module that we don't use, or don't need a finance module that we don't use, but we're still paying maintenance for.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of redundancy there. It's got vulnerable adults that doesn't work, so we don't use it, but we're still paying for it.
So just hopefully that those people who've got these big systems who are thinking, God, I'm never ever going to be able to replace this system with something that somebody's building for me, will lose that fear after they looked at your approach, hopefully.
So rather than losing the fear, they'll feel a bit more anxious, I think, because there's a lot to go through. I'm going to talk about self-build in a moment, because self-build is it's a massive opportunity. What comes with it is a big heavy bag.
Yes.
Health certainly do a lot more self-build than local authorities have. Come from health. They've got blended solutions where they use a mix of proprietary systems and self-build systems. Clinical Workstation is a self-build, or Radis is a self-build, or other GP systems, proprietary systems. I'm surprised we do very little self-build within local authority. Chris?
I go to an evening class each week with some Hewlett Packard people, and I managed to steer the conversation round on Wednesday night in the hope they feed me an interesting question. But actually, one of the things they were saying was the great weakness for open source type projects is controlling the person doing the open source, because very often their interest is in producing the most perfect, the most wonderful, beautiful logic and programming, as opposed to delivering what we actually want on the ground.
And I'm going to talk about that a bit later on. It's our responsibility to make sure that techies understand the business of the service and business needs, so that techies are there to build.
It's our part of it, but there's also the control bit.
Clear, it's our responsibility to make sure the techies understand what needs to be built.
The way we
I'm going to talk about that.
The way we split it up, we've been working on a prototype with Stuart. I've been the product owner for children's, Guy's been the product owner for adults. So we're in control of what is built, and we come up with some of the solutions to facilitate our needs.
Any other questions?
I'd just add, Gary, that just in the, and I know you're going to come on to it, but this is a context that's so different to any of the contexts that we've had, because we've always been used to buying off the shelf, and even though that buying off the shelf might have been tweaked and tailored to some degree to what we want, I remember in the early days of SID and Swift, the big companies coming down and sitting alongside us and saying, what do you need, what do you want, and it appearing to be, gosh, this is going to be really good. And then we end up with a system which, the word that they use is, it is full of feature bloat, which we quite like, the idea that actually there's lots of stuff around the edge that you don't need. But the approach this time has been bottom up. What is it that's needed in practice from the frontline mouth? Not from my mouth as head of service, but from the frontline mouth. And that's the difference, and that's why it's been such a hard journey.
Our system as well, I think we started implementing SID in 1994, then we went to Swift, then we come on to Fish. The same tables exist now as in 1994, which were originally done in the late 80s. So we're using technology that's quite old.
There was one strapline on that Prezi that talked about change the code, change the system, change the practice. And that's a strapline I'm using with social care and health at the moment. And I come back to that a bit further in. hold on to that. The most important thing in there is change the practice. Self-build. Wow, self-build. This is a fantastic little TED talk. I just want you to hold on to, just think about self-build here.
Hi, my name is Marcin, farmer, technologist. I was born in Poland, now in the US. I started a group called Open Source Ecology. We've identified the 50 most important machines that we think takes for modern life to exist. Things from tractors, bread ovens, circuit makers. Then we set out to create an open source, DIY, do-it-yourself version that anyone can build and maintain at a fraction of the cost. We call this the Global Village Construction Set. So let me tell you a story. So I finished my 20s with a PhD in fusion energy, and I discovered I was useless. I had no practical skills. I mean, the world presented me with options, and I took them. I guess you can call it the consumer lifestyle. So I started a farm in Missouri and learned about the economics of farming. I bought a tractor,
Proprietary
then
system.
it broke. I paid to get it repaired, then it broke again. And pretty soon, I was broke too.
MCC.
I realized that the truly appropriate low-cost tools that I needed to start a sustainable farm and settlement just didn't exist yet. I needed tools that were robust, modular, highly efficient and optimized, low cost, made from local and recycled materials that would last a lifetime, not designed for obsolescence. I found that I would have to build them myself. So I did just that. And I tested them. And I found that industrial productivity can be achieved on a small scale. So then I published the 3D designs, schematics, instructional videos, and budgets on a wiki. Then contributors from all over the world began showing up, prototyping new machines during dedicated project visits. So far we have prototyped 8 of the 50 machines, and now the project is beginning to grow on its own. We know that open source has succeeded with tools for managing knowledge and creativity, and the same is starting to happen with hardware too. We're focusing on hardware because it is hardware that can change people's lives in such tangible material ways. If we can lower the barriers to farming, building, manufacturing, then we can unleash just massive amounts of human potential. That's not only in the developing world. Our tools are being made for the American farmer, builder, entrepreneur, maker. We've seen lots of excitement from these people who can now start a construction business, parts manufacturing, organic CSA, or just selling power back to the grid. Our goal is a repository of published designs so clear, so complete that a single burned DVD is effectively a civilization starter kit. I've planted 100 trees in a day. I've pressed 5,000 bricks in one day from the dirt beneath my feet, and built a tractor in 6 days. From what I've seen, this is only the beginning. If this idea is truly sound, then the implications are significant. A greater distribution of the means of production, environmentally sound supply chains, and a newly relevant DIY maker culture can hope to transcend artificial scarcity. We're exploring the limits of what we all can do to make a better world with open hardware technology. Thank you.
So, that guy's got about 250,000 hits on YouTube and TED for that. That's all about self-build. It's all about prototypes. It's all about what's achievable to build a tractor in 6 days. It's all about sharing those plans, those engineering plans. It's all about having a huge commitment to want to make it all happen. What I want to do now is focus for the next half hour on Steve Maple, just impressive. Talking about being ready for modern IT, and you know, I talk to Stu quite a lot, and everyone's knocking at Stu's door. That's a concern. Everyone thinks that Stu's got a magic wand. He hasn't. He can provide modern day solutions. But it's all about being ready to make sure that I can maximise what's in Stu's head. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about, click on Stu. I'm going to talk a little bit about that experience of the social care and health. And the case study is going to be very much around what we've been doing in adults. Children have been working with Paul Thomas and other people and doing systems thinking themselves. But the focus of the case study is mainly going to be around adults and where we're at in the journey we're on. So just to roll the screen through to almost the end. This is just all of those things from the Prezi that, where it sort of sets the scene when it comes to proprietary systems. Vendor lock-in. Change the code, change the system, change the practice. That's a theme for me. Next one. A myth that open source is not secure. What Hewlett Packard will tell you, what Northgate will tell you. Northgate threatened Stu with Children's Services trace that he was putting children's lives at risk. That's what he was accused of. If you went down this route, this self-built route, which I just pick myself off the floor laughing. So that sort of sets some of the context. Hold on to change the code, change the system, change the practice. So let's roll on, Steve. So business process is about understanding the business process before you get to Stu's door. It's about, within adults, we've gone through, I would suggest, 3 to 5 years worth of transformation to get to this point. 3 to 5 years worth of transformation to get to this point, where I really feel now we're ready for a new IT build.
And we did actually try to put the new thinking into the current IT system.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, yes. It's very much a bottom-up approach. We've got no project plan. We've not got any Prince 2. Let's get this out early. We've not got a Gantt chart. We've not got a risk log. We've got a group of people who meet every Thursday. Senior people who meet every Thursday. That's where the work is dished out. We meet our practitioners 6 weekly in a session called DivDob, just doing it differently, doing it better. Open invitation to a small village hall in Lanishan where we meet every 6 weeks, somewhere between 50 and 80 practitioners. They have their voice, they have their say, they have their challenge. And this is it's about removing silos and being clear with health, and we're already finding that challenge. But we've been already brave enough to break into some of that ground, and we've run quite a brave pilot with district nurses recently, sort of with the ABHP's approval. So it's about not seeing the boundary within MCC, it's about seeing that bigger picture stuff. Okay. So a little bit about the field work. What you'll hear from anyone you bump into in social care and health for adults is, experiments, pilots, prototypes. Experiments is a word that comes from systems thinking. And what we've done there is put some of that thinking that we wanted to test. We would put it in place within one of our teams, test our thinking, save the data, perhaps using a spreadsheet, analyze the data, come back on a Thursday, look at the data, test the thinking. Did it do what we thought it would do? So there's those types of experiments that we dropped in. Yeah, it more or less do. Now let's move on to a pilot, and perhaps piloting that with one of the teams. Our early days, we took easy access fish to our Rennie team. I'll talk about that in a moment. To test some thinking and the learning that goes on with testing and thinking. Pilots, and it's all about scalability. The running of pilots and then scaling up across the service. So the integrated assessment took us, we're on version 9, we're about to go to version 10. That was tested with one team. Come back, change, come back, iteration, change, come back. We're now on version 9, we'll move to version 10. We'll probably, and we've rolled that out across all teams now. We're about to do a similar thing with the care plan. Prototypes is a technical word. Prototypes is technical solutions. It tends to be, we've got 2 prototypes, like Steve's mentioned. What we realised quite early on is we couldn't leave our staff in a broken IT system, so we were changing their heads, we were changing their practice. And then we were saying to them, go away and use Fish, the old proprietary system. What do? They go back to the desktop. They know everything was said over there, and they're going to practice in the same way. So it was about taking that thinking, changing the proprietary system, which we were, myself and Steve, were fortunate to do with the consortium that's in the South East Wales area, to make sure that when they went back, they were practicing what we were talking about. It's quite important. These are a range of things that come out. It's not exhaustive. I could have gone on and on and on here. Put this together last night. Couldn't stop thinking about things. A range of different things, experiments, pilots, prototypes, community coordination, the birth of community coordination that Nikki leads came through this transformation piece. It was born through this transformation piece. Yeah, going to roll on. A little bit about that front end. Quite early on, we looked at, this is actually going to talk about one of the experiments. What we did early on is we wanted to change the way we receive people, how the service received people. They used to go into the one-stop shops, took the one-stop shops out. We now got a professional front end with practitioners, experienced practitioners that receive those calls. We don't go into the one-stop shops. What we saw over time was this type of thing. This is a week's worth of analysis that comes out of some of the experiments. And what you see here in a week's, across the three main teams, you see a week's worth of calls, 247 calls received by the team. In the past, I would suggest that probably 200 of those calls would have probably gone on to triage and to be allocated, with a significant amount of those going through that tranche of assessment and care management. What we did is that the new way of thinking, a new way of practicing, we basically screened out 208, and we acted on 39. 39 of those cases were progressed to a further investigation and assessment. It's not to say that 208 didn't receive a service, because they did. They would receive services from very experienced practitioners over the phone. That could be signposting, that could be providing information, it could be doing a number of other things with them. So the service is still going on. And we tested, Julia did a little bit of a pilot test with those 208 that we said, you don't need anything from us. And we generally found that the reaction from those people was very positive to the experience that they received. Both Paul and Simon used some of this with his one-to-one with Peter and Paul recently. Practice change. Your county, your way. Go find, come play. Go find, come play. I'm not sure about that word. We do a lot of best practice here. We go and, this is a Monmouthshire way. We've gone out there and sought the experience from Scotland, from Western Australia, from England. I've got just a small sample here of people. There's names to these people. So I should use the names like, Emma Miller from Scotland, Tracy Robbins, who you all received through Joseph Roundtree. There's been Bob Rhodes from Living Through Friends, Nick Andrews from Ask. A lot of people have contributed to bringing practice back to Monmouthshire, to shaping the way we now deliver things. So that go find, come play, not sure about come play, is absolutely essential. We've still got strong links with Scotland and Iris and talking points, and Emma Miller has come down and spoke to practitioners and groups of us. So we're still going out there and finding that learning and bringing that back. This is absolutely fundamental. This is what I don't think we do very well in local authorities. We do it pretty well in health, but we've got to a stage where everything you've been doing, where's the learning, where's the evaluation? Because we need to evaluate what we're doing to know it's working. Because actually, what we've been doing or what we say we're doing, and we want to go and tell everyone, maybe not having the impact that we think it's having. So that robust, impartial evaluation of what we're doing is absolutely crucial. Helen did a lovely first evaluation for us on the work that we did around a transformation piece in adults. And we then sort of sought out people within Wales, because I believe, I told Will this, he probably disagree with me, but that skill base is not available to us in MCC. that skill set, surround evaluation, robust evaluation. It requires some of those research skills and techniques that Jamie Smith will talk to you about from Welsh Government. He believes the same thing. It's not embedded within local authorities. We're going to go out and see someone to come and do that evaluation piece for us. So we are lucky enough to get Sue Carnes from the Innovation Centre for Innovative Aging
and Innovation.
In Swansea University, who's doing our evaluation. We're quite lucky that we're one of 5 authorities in Wales who've been evaluated on this transformation piece. The other 4 are health-based organisations. We're the only local authority, and the results of this report will go to ministers. It's robust evaluation. She received 60 cases from us. She's just analysing those 60 cases. She's putting an evaluation framework together that potentially will be used across Wales, and she's all 5 organisations are experiencing that robust evaluation. Quite an important one now. Understanding demand and how we meet that demand in a different way. I put this one in after yesterday, we had a little bit of meeting yesterday. I think it's safe to say that we ain't got all the answers. We're on a journey. That future fit model we're still working through. We're still trying to understand demand, changing demand, how we can meet that demand. Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Staff training and development, absolutely crucial. We brought in things like outcome measurement, personal outcomes, how do you write personal outcomes. We brought people into the organisation. We provided our practitioners with training. We're trying to remove the anxiety that's around, because it's constant change. Constant change. So with constant change comes anxiety. Performance shift, this was from Matthew, he's not here. Julie sits on an All Wales group at the moment. Welsh Government themselves are struggling about how you measure this, how you measure impact on people's lives. The whole, the existing suite of PIs is based on services, counting assessments, counting reviews, counting people through the service. Absolutely rubbish. Tells you nothing. Tells you nothing. What does this new performance framework look like? How do we measure that impact on someone's life? It's incredibly difficult. Leadership and trust is in red because I think without Paul, Simon, Julie, Tracy, we would not be doing what we're doing. And when I get a bit anxious, I was anxious the other day and spoke to Paul, he said, just go and do it. I said, quite scary, some of this. So having that leadership is absolutely vital. Trust, and trust me, and Steve, and Stu. Scary again. So that's absolutely vital, underpins everything. And from an IT standpoint, just throw this one in, investors say, we may have to invest in some new technology before eventually that makes some savings, which long-term savings will make, short-term probably not. But more importantly, as well as this, keep on saying to them, as well as the savings in technology, more importantly, me and Ruth were just having a conversation, more effective and efficient system for practitioners, but as well as for practitioners for commissioning and finance at the moment. Our systems are rubbish, pretty poor at the moment. This is not my slide, this is Nick Andrews' slide. I just love this slide. I'll just let you read that a moment, but more importantly, just focus on the date. Because I believe we're in 2014 and probably not a lot's changed. I go to other authorities, I was on Bridge End the week before last month. Not a lot's changed here. We're still exhausting our practitioners with this. We're doing too much of this. I was in an agile working room last year. Someone from Tracy's service. She's in all day. I won't name her. What have you been doing? So we put in a core assessment of the system. Core assessment? How long has that taken you? No, I've been doing that all day. She's got one day. Put in a core assessment for a child in the system. That's not right. Well, Steve. So, burden of bureaucracy, recording. I want to talk about recording a little bit. These are for the anoraks. But, practitioners need IT. They can't do their work without IT. How we record is absolutely vital. It's about simplification of how we record. It's about performance back to the desktop. Those 208 tables that Steve talked about, it's a relation.
1,200 then.
Sorry?
1,200.
What was it, 1,200? Yeah, you keep on shocking when you said 1,000. It's a relational database, performance back to the desktop, because you've got 1,000 tables. I want to do this, it goes there, 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 you wait until, pops out on the screen. It's old technology, it's dated technology. It's what the likes of Hewlett Packard and Northgate and Liquid Logic, they all use those types of structures. So performance of the desktop is slow. And they will all tell you that remote access, we can do remote data access, we can do that. All your practitioners will be using tablets in 12 months of our system. They'll be out in the field. I just don't see that with this type of technology. You know, for us to go remote access, we're looking at open source tools, because the performance of the tablet will be so much quicker. Performance within a tablet environment over Citrus, over relational database will be, you go into the house, make me a cup of coffee, because I'll switch on my PC, and then hopefully when you come back, the PC will have been available to me. What we record, we over-record. Let's say that again, we over-record. We record too much in children, we record too much in adults. So we've been on a bit of a pilgrimage with adults about looking at what we record and reducing probably what we record by, I would suggest, in a way of 60 to 70%. Massively over-record. We record the wrong types of stuff, we tick boxing, we codify it, we classify it. So it's a move to more narrative-based recording that makes sense to the person, but also makes sense to the practitioner. That narrative-based recording is based on what matters, and asking that what matters question to our people. And in some cases that's proved very, very difficult. And we're still having debates about how we manage that what matters conversation. We're on personal outcomes, we've given our staff training on personal outcomes. The bill is based on personal outcomes. It's vogue in an area of personal outcomes. Writing personal outcomes is very, very difficult, as we're finding. And measuring personal outcomes is very, very difficult. And the power of the story is within something like the Raglan project that's working with clients with dementia, you know, recording a story or a narrative. In some cases, in the matter having this debate, you know, the evidence of a story is far greater than an indicator percentage of people have done that. So, you know, the importance of stories and doing thematic analysis with stories to tease out some of the main themes that we will use in evidence. And we did a little bit of that with Will's department as a prerequisite of the COCO report that went to Cabinet, which is quite exciting, wasn't it? Okay, recording. Technology. Predefined package software does not meet. So what we're finding is Northgate didn't meet our needs anymore. So I talked about those business needs and understanding those business needs. Northgate ain't going to do it for us. And this balance, shifting the balance away from the system. Technology enables the support staff to do their job. That's what it should be, only it's all consuming at the moment. They've got a technology system that just sucks them in, and they spend less time on face-to-face and more time punching buttons. Self-build meets our needs. I'll talk very quickly about self-build and the implications in a moment, but this was a quite important one, Chris. You know, don't expect these techies, don't expect Stu to have the magic wand or the magic dust to turn it round. And part of you as the person have got to transfer those business needs into Stu's head. And what I'm saying is that go and visit your business needs and transform your practice before getting into Stu's door. Okay. Where are we now? Well, we produced 2 prototypes. We've got a prototype in Swift that's being practiced, being used by all our teams. It uses about 95% of the core product.
No, other way around.
The other way around, yeah.
Other way around, 5%.
It uses about 5% of the
95% we're not
Sorry,
using.
it doesn't use, yes, it uses about 5% of the core product, so that's the type of change that myself and Steve have been working with the techies on. So probably at the moment uses about 5%. We produce an open source prototype with Stu that we've taken out to practitioners. We showed the practitioners what you think of it. Love it. Very simple, very clinical, very contemporary. Not cluttered, not noisy. I've got all the baggage of these proprietary systems.
It also works on mobile devices.
Works on mobile devices. We were out with someone, he just went, I think I was in Cardiff with him in Witherspoons, and got it up on his iPhone, so you know he's got that ability. Yeah, well. So a little bit about the journey and where we're at and where we're heading. Working with CMC Squared as a technical partner. That's our technical partner at this point in time. We will have an SLA with CMC Squared to provide the self-build service. So that's quite important. We're not going to the marketplace as MCC, because we're trying to avoid OJA and all that baggage that comes with that. We're using CMC Squared as our technical partner, and we're using Stuart's technical advice and knowledge to be able to shape some of this.
So sorry, does Stuart work for CMC Squared?
Yeah, Stu is, do you want to, Stu should be here, probably buying another set of jeans. He's Chief Technical Officer to MCC, but he works within CMC Squared, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean CMC Squared is the authority's wholly owned community interest company, and Stu was brought in earlier in the year, as Gary said, as Chief Technology Officer, so he is building that capacity and resource around him as that company now takes a move into agile software development. So.
Light Touch OBS, myself and Simon Birch met some of the suits from Cardiff who were doing the other proprietary build and spec that everyone is expected to use in Wales on this at the moment. When we met, Stu and Simon Birch met in their technical OBS. He put it on the centre of the table to impress us. It was about, I think it was about 2 inches thick actually. Our Light Touch OBS is...
It's worth it. It took him 2 years to do.
Took him 2 years. Our Light Touch OBS is 4 pages. Working with CMC Squared to outsource technical build, Stu will be involved. He will be project manager through CMC Squared. We will outsource the technical build. And what we're doing at, got to be careful in mind, the clock 10:30 days, we're going to see 2 of the technical partners today. We're going to pitch their idea of the build to us. So I've been to both the SCMs. I've been to one of them. I went with Stu and I was expecting 3 guys in the back bedroom, spots, geeks, It was a pretty impressive setup. There was 75 people, very, very professional. Massive screens, big structures in place. Very, very impressive. Very, very impressive. So about to start the technical build in June. We're in June, so hopefully next 2 weeks we will kick off. Next. Build phase, no magic wand yet. This is when it gets hard. I talked about self-build and marching. With his 6-day build on his tractor. This is when it gets really hard. We expect to work harder than techies. When you meet Stu, you're not going to walk away from Stu and he's going to build this all for you. This is hard yards. This is very hard yards. It's a partnership. Significant commitment. Easy for us to say this is too hard. I've often thought about this when I'm not sleeping. I think, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Really hard yards. It's an iterative process, starting with a clear understanding of user experience. So we're going to look at user experiences and how practitioners use the system. The company I went to said, come and look at this room. We'll put some of your social workers in this room. We'll get them using the system. And actually what it does, it records every keystroke and it videos them and it tells us how efficient the system are. A bit like lab rats almost. So we may try some of that. It's a fast pace. We're talking about June. We're talking about, Steve, we've got to be off the contract by 31st of October. Incredibly frightening. But if March you can build a tractor in 6 days, I'm sure this is awesome. Several design sprints. A lot of unknown. You know, it's not 2 years of writing an OBS that's 2 inches thick. This is 4 sheets of A4 paper. I'm working with the technical partners to build this thing. Each sprint is probably going to last between 5 and 10 days. My diary, Steve's diary, will be cleaned out for the next 5 months. This will be all consumed for 5 months. Okay, go live with practitioners in late October. We've got contingency in place with Julie. Yeah, so if this goes belly up, so we thought
You
about
can blame you
contingency.
next
So
time for that.
we always get contingency in place. Expectations, the vision, helping people live their own lives, bit of systems thinking stuff there. Some of the things we expect, and these are some of the things that come through from the transformation piece. These are not systems things, these are not techie things. This is the direction, this is looking at the clients. And then some of the technical things. Practitioners spend less time using the system, got to happen. They spend far too much time using the system. Greater frontline capacity. System that supports rather than hinders practitioners, because it's all consumed at the moment. Remote digital working. We're already seeing it with open source systems. There are Surrey, Lancashire, Kent. I've got social workers, practitioners, district nurses using tablets within households. That's happening now. And interoperability is all about, you know, this is about our linking with health. It's shit at the moment, so that has to improve. You know, we have to think about, rather than silo recording and silo systems, using one system and start sharing patient records in that environment. Okay, questions? Chris?
Yes, sorry. I can say he's not here. It might embarrass him. Stu is one of the world's impressive people, I find. And there's a sort of risk. How much are we at risk? If God forbid Stu, for example, got run over by a bus.
What we're looking to do with Stu is we're going to work with us. Pete can answer some of this as well. We're looking to actually bring some other programmers into CMC Squared, so it's not just Stu and others. What we're looking to do with this build is that, you know, if Stu walked away in 12 months' time, what myself and Steve are challenged with doing is making sure that, you know, today it's CMC Squared with Haley, it could be SRS, it could be the consortium that provide that service level agreement that supports our open source program.
We know the skills we'll need in a few years' time when Stuart does leave, so we've got to make sure those skills are available to us.
So we're looking to free ourselves of Stu, Chris, so that's the idea. Short term the build,
So obviously,
long term we've got to free ourselves
one would have
of
to
Stu.
expect them to move on. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think from the outset we've always looked at what is the exit strategy
Yes.
for this piece of work. We haven't sort of sat there and said we're going to have Stu
Yes.
forever and he's going to be our front of knowledge. From the outset of this piece of work, it's like, okay, Stu's here for now, but how is that going to look later on? And I think that was right at the initial stage as we started thinking about that. We've never been kind of complacent thinking Stu's going to be here forever. We've kind of had that right at the forefront.
Yeah,
And also, this is being built on a platform that means that actually the usability of it is very different to the usability that we have now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So actually we're going to build skill through the people who, through Gary and others, and a range of, thinking Julia and Mandy, there are a lot of people who currently support our systems, but our systems are so difficult to support, the current system is so difficult to support because it's too clunky. This new system is going to be so user-friendly that actually the technical aspects of changing things are just not going to be what we've been used to. Every time we've had to change something in the past, we've been in a dearth for the last, 12, 18 months. We've had no technical support whatsoever, and we've had to hold the system together with some very goodwill of some very competent admin staff, and we've got away with it. This system is going to be so much more easy to fix and develop and grow, I suppose, is the way that we're seeing it.
In the budget we've allowed for continuous development, because what we hope when staff start using it, you know, can it do this? Well, yeah. We'll have to invest in that, but you know, 2 years, 3 years' time, it could be a different look system. But
we were talking earlier, is there a lesson to be learned from the fish type stuff. Where I know the focus has been on improving the service to the service user, making the coal face work much better. But there are lots of other groups of people for whom fish stroke Swift is the coal face. For example, commissioning has a need. And for example, we were talking about how the people who, in commissioning who need to get into the data.
Yeah, because you know, I had a conversation with
slightly left out of it.
I've not lost sight that there's finance and commissioning on each shoulder year, and there will be needs that we will be able to provide. You know, I've struggled to see that we've not got a system that, you know, I've struggled this organisation, the way it uses spreadsheets and things like that. To me, I just can't. It needs to be inside the system, and we will look at those requirements and we will address them.
I'm sure it's all there. I'm just flagging up that it's great to have a all singing, all dancing system, which I'm sure this will become, but actually its effectiveness will be diluted if actually there's a great deal of effort's not put into making sure that the support around that is just as competent at using the system as the people who are using it all the time.
And it may mean that it's changing the way in which that support actually works with the system. We've had some conversation about brokerage and commissioning and all of those things yesterday. I would expect it to be changing in other parts of the organisation.
And I think we're looking at it from, although it's looked at from the practitioner perspective, the greatest failing of our system in children's services at the moment is, for example, if you've got a child who's in foster care, all that finance information, all the day-to-day finance stuff for that child is kept somewhere. And my view is that that is that child's need. That need is that finance requirement, and actually that information should then, and I've got no technical knowledge at all, I expect it to be sucked out to the bit where it needs to be.
And you should be able to do your budgetary management off the system, not sucking it out or holding it in a spreadsheet. It should all be done within the system.
I think it's fair to say that there's some phasing here.
Yes,
and
there
I
is.
think
Can't do everything at
we
once.
can't do it all at once,
No.
but I think we are so aware of what the interconnections are, and I certainly think that through the transformation journey, and this is just through the practice change, never mind the technical solution stuff, you know, we had to start with the front door. We had to start with the citizen and start with ensuring that and we're still not there, that we are defining personal outcomes and we're measuring that distance travelled, and we're still not there. But actually that's going to push us along that tube towards commissioning, which it's doing now, and beginning to look at how we change what we buy and all of that interconnection. So for me there's a massive opportunity with this, because if it's simple enough and if it's designed bottom up, then the next phase, you know, we're already talking about the connection with direct care. There's some massive connection with that. Finance, definitely. Commissioning is implicit as far as I'm concerned. But we can't, if there were more of us, we'd be able to do it a lot quicker, I think, but it's phasing.
But it is phasing. It will at least be, myself, Steve, we're talking maybe 3 phases, which could even be 3 years. You know, we're talking, but that SLA with that technical partner will be looking at what additions we make year on year, and there will be an amount of money that will be put in place to provide the support, maintenance and development.
And I'm just making the point that it's very obvious you need to phase this in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
we know that.
in my experience, when there's phase pilot introductions, it pays to actually put quite a bit of effort into the people who are not involved in the phase, just to keep reminding them they haven't been forgotten, because they can feel left.
Communication.
Yeah, the requirements.
Communication of the
Yeah,
development.
and to be honest, we recently dropped a few clangers in commissioning that probably have been connected with this idea that we've not had the knowledge of how to get to things. So, you know.
I mean, what I would add there, just to, I guess, respond to a couple of points you raised there, Chris. I mean, I think first off, in terms of the point that you raised around Stu and the risk there, yes, we're very lucky to have access to Stu, absolutely. Stu is a one-off in one respect, we all are. But there are other high-class chief technology officers, software developers out there. It's the way that software development is moving. It is open source, it is all agile software development, which comes on to the second point really, which is around making sure the system is fit for purpose. That is agile software development. That is the sprints that Gary talked about.
Absolutely.
There are those touch points at the development through those phases where you need to make sure, and you test back, and you test back. Because if it's ground up build, and it's built around users and the front line and the needs and the what matters, then you need to keep radaring that back in. But open source software solutions allow that to happen. It's the flexibility that offers, and if you take this off into the environment of a proprietary system, all of that falls away.
Absolutely.
So,
It falls away. Not only does it fall away, if you do require it, it's a little bit different.
So
Like,
what
the
if,
first thing you want to receive off you is a cheque for 40k.
No, I'm totally convinced open source is definitely the way forward, and exactly right. It's just my perception is the front line is probably slightly wider and broader than has been focused on.
Yeah, even though phase 2 could be commission and finance, you'll still be involved in the requirements in phase 1 because there'll be some quick wins like when children's services and
I was just going to point,
defined.
Pete.
no, I was just going to say anything in terms of, you're actually still at quite an early stage of development here.
Absolutely.
You said earlier, we're about to go into build phase.
Yes.
You've gone through some very important stages which we've never seen elsewhere in terms of prototyping the build.
Can I add something here? Over the last 3 years, where we've been doing the Do It Differently, Do It Better sessions, and having our weekly meetings, which are at the minute under the banner name of Vanguard, it's been a huge journey. And nobody has set out on day one thinking this is where we're at. And each week you can see it evolving and changing, and where we are now to where we were 3 years ago, I think is absolutely truly astounding. And none of us, I think, at that point, well, perhaps you might have done, but for those of us with not that type of brain, really knew what we were going to be looking at now. And I don't think we could have had some of those conversations with some of our other partners because we didn't know. And it is that experimenting, it is that feeding back and running the pilots that have got us this far. And we couldn't have gone to Stu before.
No.
We absolutely couldn't, because we'd have been wasting shed loads of money, because it has been a growing phase. It's been a whole huge journey.
Absolutely.
I've got 5 minutes left before we meet one of the
Quick look at the prototype.
the SMEs.
yes.
Questions?
It's really refreshing that you're not bringing in a system to solve your problem.
No.
You're looking at your problem and solving your problem.
know-
And you're bringing in a system that's dead simple.
Yes.
Because you've already solved the problem with your own
Absolutely.
working
Sure.
practices.
Absolutely.
And that's absolutely crucial in all of this. You can't expect to bring a system in that's going to solve all your problems, all your people problems, all your culture problems, all your working practices. So this is really refreshing that you've done that approach first, and it's obviously working, isn't it?
5 minutes. Just a little quick view on the one prototype, the open source prototype, which Steve will show you.
I think the biggest change is what proposed was the actual sign-up, so self-registration, so we get a new worker, they can fill in their details and go through an authorisation process, which is yet to be designed, but
Hi, Mark,
stop
how are you?
the email to IT, the phone calls, where's my login, so that will be one quick win.
Right.
What we've also got, our system doesn't allow for people to be in 2 different teams, so we have 2 different roles, and we have quite a few staff to do that, so if you're in one team, fair enough, but you can choose your role within the organisation. What you see would be what role you're actually doing, but if you do change roles halfway through the day, there's that facility as well, so it's very dynamic. Stuart's put all these little blobs, so what happens then when you're looking at it on the phone, these blobs rearrange themselves to be quite a nice view on the phone, so you can, if you're out and want the phone number, you can go in quite quickly, and it'll be the first. We talk about 3 levels of information. There's the phone numbers, address, then level 2 might be next to kin, and level 3 could be your ethnicity, which you don't need to get to every day, but it's still a requirement to record it, so it's deep down in the system. The search is a dynamic search, builds up as you use it, similar to Google now, which our search screen at the moment, you've got to put in the name, put in the address.
100%.
9 times out of 10 we end up with a duplicate, so it's a pain. We have actions, there's going to be a lot of workflow based on actions, and these can be text, email, go to your Twitter account, it's going to be linked to social media, linked to your Outlook calendar, that's your pay system, we're changing this all the time, so your alerts will be any hazards that are on you, as well as this will link to the corporate spine. So if there are alerts for other people in the organisation, this could show to them. So it's all the personal information will be built around one corporate spine. That hopefully in the future, as iCounty comes on board, this will be your social services role. That will be your housing options role. So there'll be different views of different people. Statuses will be that will change. So it'll be in progress. But there's different statuses for children and adults, but that will show you, and they're yet to be defined. We've got 2 minutes. Again, there's the blobs, but it links into Google Maps, so if I wanted to see where the address was, it could go straight there. Again, if that's on your phone, it's automatically there, the person I'm going to see. It's all basic, that's your level 1 information. I didn't like this there, but we're going to change where that is, but level 2. What we've gone into is a progress bar. Each person will have a progress bar based on what part of the system they're in. So if they're looked after a child, they'll have a different progress bar. There'll be some things that are going on at the same time, and it'll be green if everything's on time, orange that there's something actually needs to be done, red if that's not overdue, and the manager will see a summary of that so they can see when things aren't being done. They'll get alerts when things aren't being done. And the idea is you can navigate through the record on your progress bar. So I can go into the assessment, I can go into the care plan, and it'll go straight there. We thought as well, we're trying to reduce the number of clicks we've got. So when he clicks on the integrated assessment, that'll be your current assessment rather than a long list of historical assessments. The care and support plan will go straight to the part that says who does what by when, which is the information that you 9 times out of 10 want to see. If you didn't want to see that, you'll go back to another section, but it's all, it's all to design less clicks, basically. Chronology is going to be very important when we get this right, because a lot of information will be sort of the history of the client, and they'll be different. There might be a staff history, there might be a child protection history, there might be a court history, might be slightly different views of the same information, but it'll be generated automatically by filters. And the way we see it working, each document's a form, part of the process, and that'll be tagged behind the scenes. Eventually we'll be able to put our own hashtags, which will work more like social media. So when Simon logs on, you might see actually domestic violence trending on the social services app. I might want to look into that, or there might be some, alcohol abuse might be an issue. Let's go and see what's happening there. Let's go and talk to some workers. So it's going to be very, very intuitive, very easy to use. That's the system in a nutshell. And what we hope to do, the system will match process so much, we're not going to end up with a 9-day course to learn how to use the child system with a 1,000-page manual. It's going to be, this is your process.
Okay.
I just think it's important, those people who don't know our systems, and there's lots of people here who don't, if you could see what it is that they work on now. I mean, my mouth's on the floor, because it's like science fiction, this, because it's so different and so much more it's like a piece of something out of the art.
Show it, but it'll take me 10 minutes to log.
Well, I was going to say, it'd take ages.
To load every page.
Yeah.
Try to make it as simple as possible. That's the challenge. Thanks for everyone. There's a few people I know have asked to come along to the next session, which is a closed session with 2 of the SMEs. Apart from that, thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks very much.